The Expendables 4, or the way they spell
It
it is like
looked fun,
Expendables with a
but it looks like
4.
it was going to be awful. Is that fair?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's the kind of movie where you watch the trailer and you're like, I'm gonna have a good time with the action. There's gonna be some corny dialogue. There's maybe gonna be a few jokes that hit, but ultimately it's gonna be a bad movie. But I'm not expecting anything more. And that's exactly the kind of attitude you gotta have to go into this film, because it's a very unbalanced action movie. It's the kind of movie where you're like, okay, so they did that trope, but they're really not going to do that trope, are they? Okay, yes, they did that trope too. All right, great. Oh, okay, so
Oh no.
yeah, she said that. Oh no, no, okay, yeah, he said that. Oh, they went there. Like it was, you're just, it's cliche after cliche. And even the action, like there was a lot of green screen, like clearly green screen shots in here, where like, for example, 50 Cent is on this Humvee and he's shooting a 50 caliber gun at like the bad guys, and you can clearly see that when they go to his reaction shot to something happens and he's got a one-liner, you can see he's in front of a green screen because the shot behind it just it just looks like he's in a green screen. You see a lot of that in this. You can really tell that they, a lot, because the Expendables have always been like, the franchise has been based around these old action stars sort of like doing stuff where they're still like kicking ass. But in this movie, it's finally felt like that, like these people are old and they really can't fight. So they're so limited. And basically 90% of the action in this movie is Jason Statham, like doing stuff. A lot of times just solo doing stuff. And then you got Tony Jaa, and he's got like a lot of stuff in the third act. So, and Tony Jaa and Iko Uwais, who is like the plays the antagonist. Those three people, Tony Jaa, Iko Uwais, and Jason Statham, are like basically the three people who do all the actual action in this movie. Everybody else like has some like basically some side role, or like you get the 50 Cent thing where he's like shooting a gun, but like clearly in front of a green screen, and then you're just gonna cut that into the other sequence. There's some bad CGI in this. Like you could easily tell that's like, those are PlayStation 5 level graphics. I mean, they're good, but you could tell they're animated. Like, and I know that these movies don't have a huge budget. So like, I understand that. Like I can let go of my CGI complaints, because I'm not exactly going into this expecting like ILM level Transformers effects. But at the end of the day, I do have to say, the movie felt like it just was the most lazily. It felt like it was written by maybe like Sly Stallone when he was, just having a conversation at a bar with Jason Statham, and they decided to do a fourth movie, and then they just wrote something out and sent it to some assistant to clean it up a little bit, and then that's the
Feels like
script
a
they used.
Stallone move.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
I'm
I mean,
sure
he
that's
did.
how he wrote Rocky. He was just like at a cafe and he was like, please make my movie.
And look, I'm not saying, okay, I don't even think, Sylvester Stallone wrote this. I'm pretty sure he didn't write this movie. And yes, I mean, he did write the first Rocky, which is, an absolute American classic as far as movies are concerned. So I'm not here to like literally call out, oh yeah, Sylvester Stallone wrote a terrible movie.
Well,
no, but he's a producer on this.
Yeah.
Can I go into some spoilers? Can I give you a little bit of?
Are you going to give an actual spoiler alert? We've been yelled at recently about those.
Yes. So spoiler
you guys,
alert,
if
everybody.
you ever check out the comments, it's usually just us getting yelled at. So we do what we do here for you out of the love for what we do and nothing else. We just need you to know that, okay?
Absolutely. And at this point, if you're not prepared for spoilers, then I don't know what else we can do to prepare you. So basically, they did that whole, which actually they kind of stuck to their guns for a while. And so I was kind of doubting myself, but eventually, it didn't pan out. They did that whole trope where like one of the lead characters dies early in the movie. And then they go to like the very end of the movie, and then you get this like, what is that terminology? Like when you have like something insanely crazy happens that helps resolve the conflict, and there's like this Latin term, I'm blanking on it right now. But basically like that character comes back at the end of the movie and helps save the day. Like
he's dead.
Exactly, or so we thought. Or so we thought.
So we thought. So he was not actually dead. He was not actually
dead.
Got it. He pulled Bond. Except this time Bond is actually dead.
Well, Bond dies like in Skyfall. He supposedly dies in the opening sequence, but then we know he's alive like the next sequence after like that whole Adele song.
After the Adele song.
Well, literally, it was the Skyfall. It was, the Adele.
I was like 15. Am I allowed to say this? I was so high when I went to go see that movie. I couldn't even watch them.
I
And that
mean,
Skyfall sequence, what I remember of that is it just being so ridiculous. I think I was 16. I had to have been like 16, but I was like, there was a lot of marijuana involved, guys. Sorry. I just turned very red admitting that on TV. You can cut that out if you want to, Dan.
oh no, it's fine. But basically, okay. Since I'm going to spoiler territory, I guess we'll give away the spoiler. It was Sly Stallone's character that dies early in the movie. The first time they go into action to try to apparently get these nuclear bomb detonators from the bad guy who's trying to steal them to then detonate a nuke somewhere. And so they fail in the mission, but in the process, Sly Stallone's character dies, and it is a huge miss it's a huge deal for Jason Statham's character because they're like brothers basically, not actual brothers, but they're like brothers. And you see the whole opening of the movie is kind of like them bonding over, and there's some corny, cheesy back and forth dialogue where you're like, are they even acting? Or there's a few things hit. A lot of the other things are either they're too old to emote, or they're just not very good actors. I can see the intent.
Old to emote? What does that even mean?
No, they literally felt stiff, and that's kind of the theme throughout this movie. A lot of times, the character, the dialogue delivery was very stiff.
Quote for the lifetimes.
And again, I'm not saying this Sly Stallone's he is fantastic in that show he's got on Paramount Plus, Tulsa King, I think he's. So when he's got the right filmmaking team with him, and he's given the right material and directed well, and I don't know what level of effort goes into between a performance like that and a performance like this. But clearly in this movie, it felt like everybody was there to just have fun, and maybe they were like, "This is a pretty bare bones script."
Too much fun. So apparently this movie is bad. Everybody just aware. Was the action at least fun to watch?
So So the action was good, but not always good. I did mention there were some action sequences where the CGI, the bad CGI, was a little distracting. They had a couple of chase sequences which were okay. I've seen better though. It's nothing that truly stands out. You're not gonna walk away from this movie thinking, "Oh my god, now that sequence was amazing. I will reference that for whatever reason in the future." There's really no moment in this movie that quite is like that, and that's unfortunate because that's some immense potential. Because Tony Jaa in anything, that guy knows how to do mixed martial arts on camera, and he's got some fantastic movies on his resume. Jason Statham, of course, does basically all action movies, and in a year when the Meg 2 has Jason Statham doing things holding back a Meg with his shoe, there wasn't anything in this movie where Jason Statham wasn't doing anything that we haven't seen him do a million times before. And the sequences where they had Tony Jaa and Iko Uwais figting.
What about Megan Fox?
I just felt like there was a lot of
she joined the team.
Megan Fox had very little action to do other than she's shooting guns like everybody else in a few sequences, and she's doing she had some. This movie is rated R in the gore, but definitely not it wasn't. They only hinted at the nudity and the sexual content. It wasn't anything like that. So Jason Statham and Megan Fox are intimate in this movie, and at the beginning they have a scene, but it's you never you don't see any anything explicit. But then later in the movie, the only thing that really made it rated R is there's a few F-bombs, and then there's a lot of blood and gore. That's really the reason why this movie is rated R. And I think Megan Fox's character, as well as there was another, I forgot her name, but there's another actress who is the second, female member of the team toward the end of the movie, and she's apparently has a thing for Randy Couture's character, who looks like he's 3 times her age, but whatever, I'm not judging. 2 times his age, I don't know. I don't know how old Randy Couture is. He looks very stiff. Dolph Lundgren's character apparently can't see properly, and he's got this whole character arc, which if you haven't seen the previous movie, you wouldn't really know that, he only does his best work when he's drunk, and apparently he's been sober for a while, so that's his little character arc that they put him on. 50 Cent had a pretty 50 Cent, like honestly, if Curtis Jackson was not in this movie, you wouldn't know the difference because he doesn't do anything important in this film whatsoever, other than he's like the new guy that they play that joke five too many times where like, oh yeah, he's the new guy. Oh, you haven't been around. Oh, you wouldn't understand that. Like I'm like, okay, we get it. He's the new guy. Like, and you guys don't know him very well.
So the script is bad. The action is bad. The CGI is bad.
I will say this though.
Acting is bad. It just sounds like a terrible movie.
And the story, like the way things play out, the plot is like it's basically like a lesser version of every like, you know, movie like The Hunt for Red October or those kind of movies where you have the USA and Russia potentially getting pitted against it. It's like the most like amateurish version of that story because the main crux of the story is they've got this big oil tanker that they've dressed up as an aircraft carrier, which you could not mistake that for an aircraft carrier in a time when, you know, you have satellites that can kind of tell like things down to like 1 meter. It looks like the fakest aircraft carrier you could probably, and it's supposedly that's the one that's got the nuke on it. Apparently it's supposed to go to Vladivostok, which is one of Russia's big maritime ports in the Arctic Circle, and like they're supposed to blow up the nuke and have an American flag on the boat, so that way it's like, oh, America blew up a nuke on the Russian port, World War III. That's apparently the big deal, and the whole reason why the bad guys are doing it is because they want to. The bad guy is, which by the way, Andy Garcia's guy. Yeah, they want to start a war so they can profiteer off of it. And Andy Garcia is like the bad guy, and he's also happens to be
that was the same
person who sends them into the mission.
As the last.
Everything about this movie is a trope. Basically,
yeah, like, I feel like that is like overplayed at this point.
It's
like,
so tropey. Like
everybody is hinting at World War III in every action movie I watched in the last.
And we've seen this whole renaissance of the USA versus Russia kind of a thing. Like for a while, it was a war on terror, and now it's just
let's just shut up and move on.
To the 80s and Cold War.
Yeah. Okay. So,
by the way, can I just say
some of these reviews to you?
Before you do that, can I give you this one highlight of the movie that I actually enjoyed? So apparently, I don't know if you have seen the previous movies. Antonio Banderas was in a couple of these movies.
Love him.
And his character sort of ends up biting the dust. Like I think it was in the last movie or the one before that. In this movie, they introduced what is meant to be his adult son. He's played by, I don't remember the name of the actor who plays him, but apparently the director, it's at least from what I could tell, the director probably told him, you are playing Antonio, not the character, you're playing Antonio Banderas' son. And so just do him and the best parody that you can. So if you want somebody who sounds like the most parody version of Antonio Banderas, and you want that kind of that is probably the best part of this movie, because every time he's talking, I'm just like, okay, that impression is probably the highlight of this film, and he does that the whole time. So I personally liked it. I could tell a lot of other people would be like annoyed by it, but that was one highlight in this movie.
Okay,
that was good.
I have to ask you this. If you could go back in time knowing what this movie was going to be like, would you still have gone to see it in theaters?
No. I don't think I've seen a single Expendables movie in theaters since the first one.
Okay.
Because the first one was okay. And here's the thing, none of these 4 Expendables movies have been good. And the worst thing is they're supposed to be like these.
Why do they keep making them? I don't get it.
I think they make just enough money, and they cost only so much to make, so there's enough financial sense. And I bet you, like, once they're out of theaters, they perform well in, like, you know, post theatrical, like DVD, digital, you know, broadcast and all that.
Was your theater full? Because I was supposed to go see it, guys. I got stuck shooting. I was like filming all day. Yeah. I couldn't make it. But when I went to go find a seat, it was all open. Like, and I booked my ticket like 2 hours in advance.
So okay, here's the irony is, well, yeah, that's kind of true, because like the theater was only like 1/3 full. Yeah. It was fuller than I thought it would be, honestly. But I could definitely tell you that not a lot of people, like the theater in general, seemed pretty empty today, because there's not a ton of new movies that are the big movies coming out the last couple of weeks. So if you've already seen all the big ones from a few weeks ago, Barbie I think is back in playing IMAX. So unless you want to go see that again for the
What
100th
the
time,
Okay, so Sylvester Stallone did direct this, just so you know.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Okay, but now that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, this is the original one. Just kidding. Sorry, guys.
I don't
looking it up. I'm like, da-da-da-da-da-da. Ooh, flops with an $8.3 million debut as The Nun claims number one. Interesting.
The Nun, which by the way is in its second week of release, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, no, the third week, maybe. I think The Nun is in its third or fourth week of release, and it's number one. Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, that's my biggest complaint about these movies is they've got the cast.
Yeah.
That if they could just get a decent writer and even a semi-decent director, and even with the budget that they do have, they can put together a decent film. Because here's the honest truth about at least this Expendables film. I have seen better direct-to-DVD action movies that are parodies of like a bigger franchise than this film. And that's disappointing because they have talent. Like, say what you will about Jason Statham's limited acting ability. Say what you will about Megan Fox and the fact that she probably doesn't have the biggest range of all actors, or Tony Jaa, who's like a great action star, but you wouldn't necessarily trust him to lead a Hollywood film. Dolph Lundgren at this stage of his career, or Sylvester Stallone. Again, he's still limited. He can do well, and like clearly in like Tulsa King, for example, he's done other projects in the Creed franchise in recent years. He's done a fantastic job, but I think there's enough talent here, at least in front of the camera, that they could have done a better job than they did. And I know at the start of our show today, I mentioned that if you add up the critic scores for Expendables 4 and Dumb Money, they add up to 100.
So
I'm pretty sure
Expendables 4 is a 16% on the tomato meter, 16.16. The audience score is 70%. We were looking at that earlier, it like had disappeared. But I would really love to read some of the top critic reviews because they make me laugh. Whenever a movie, I anticipate it being bad, I look at the top critic reviews. I guess they generally always, but on the movies that are particularly bad, the critic reviews are particularly funny.
Because they have to get really creative. They have so much. You can tell they're having more fun writing reviews for these bad movies than the good ones. Because in the good ones, they actually have to sound serious. They have to like actually do thinking. They gotta like, okay, people are gonna read this and they're gonna want to know. But in this movie, because it's like the writers of these reviews know that nobody expects. It was
comparable for Meg 2. Remember we were reading the ones for Meg 2, and I was like dying. I was like, "There's no way in hell I will ever go see this movie. This is terrible. I'm not gonna waste my time with it." Based off of these reviews specifically. All right, so my favorite. David Jenkins, the bar was already so low, and yet this film manages to sneak underneath it. We've got The Disposables would describe it better. And the last, but not the least, plot, you say? What plot? In a word, negligible. That's my
fantastic. Oh, my favorite one, because this is probably the most creative one that I've read in terms of like it's trying to sound intelligent. It's trying to sound intelligent by sounding dumb is the way I would describe it. A laughably lazy exercise in utility grade meat and potatoes filmmaking. And that's from like RogerEbert.com. Like
they said they tried to get it right and they just did not. That's exactly.
I'm like a laughably lazy exercise in utility grade meat and potatoes filmmaking. You have to kind of sit there and think about what that means. Yeah, like so
meat and potatoes, right? Because like the basics.
Yeah, I mean,
so meat and potatoes is like hardcore American basics, and they fracked it up. That's what that means.
Yeah. Because like you read that, you think about it. Oh, so you're just saying it was just hot garbage. Oh, okay, I get it. Like I thought about I spent the last 5 minutes really like deciphering that language.
I know it makes me laugh in a way when people refer to things as hot garbage because it's like that's just bad.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like if I had to watch this movie a second time, I could have been doing worse things because
That's
here
true.
the one thing to put it end this on a positive note, I will say at the very least this movie isn't boring. Like it doesn't put you to sleep.
Because it's so
Like
bad, it's not boring. Is that what it is?
yeah, but like
Nothing this
although
bad can be
when
that
it
boring,
comes
you
to
guys.
like it's so bad it's good territory, I
Mm-hmm.
still think the Meg 2 is better because the Meg 2 is it's because they know that you know that the actors and the filmmakers know that
That
they're
it's
making a dumb
bad.
movie, and
So they
so
just really
they
lean
went to the
into it.
max. Also, that movie had a bigger budget, so you can see like
Mm-hmm.
some of the action sequences played out better. The movie was a little longer runtime. You got some even crazier stuff. Whereas this movie, like it kind of falls short on a few of those things. But at the end of the day, you know, I wasn't exactly bored by it. But I certainly like if I had a choice between this and I don't know watching Barbie for the fifth time, I would probably go watch Barbie for the fifth time
You've
because
seen
it's
Barbie 4 times?
and I have it at home. I could probably just watch it at home for the fifth time. Although I haven't seen it in IMAX yet, which is ironic of all the times I went and saw it. Um, anyway, so guys, what do you think about the Expendables 4? Is this just as bad as you expected it to be? Is it worse or is it better? I mean, have you seen it? Do you plan on seeing it? Let us know in the comments below.
I
Of course.
really want to challenge you all to comment something that would make me want to go see this movie. Please, I'm begging. I'm begging.
I think I think that uh that accent, Antonio Banderas's character's son. I think that's probably a good. That might I don't know if that's
I
worth
don't
spending like $20 for a
know.
movie ticket for,
Well, I've
but
got A-list, but yeah.
okay, well, yeah, if you got one of those like movie credits to use up, then yeah, maybe. And it's not the worst way to spend your 90 minutes. You could do worse things, I suppose.